State of Jammu and Kashmir is known to everyone. It's integral part of India as we claim. Is having very ancient history, hence it's a part of India. History of Kashmir is as old, as ancient as any other part of India. But we will deal with the Kashmir post 47, that is post our independence, because that's the key issue, and that where the significance lies. We all are aware that prior to our independence, there was over 600 princely states. Our Kolhapur was one of them. And these princely states were dominions of Britishers. Means they were not having any power, they were having only celebrity status. Means they were having titles like Raja, Maharaja, even Nawab, but real power will reside with British resident, governor and four officials of British government. At the time of independence and partition, as we know, the Britishers do not want India should emerge as a great power. Firstly, they gave independence with very reluctance. When they came to know that armed forces are not with Britain, people by and large against their rule, and it's impossible to stay further. They decided to quit by doing maximum damage. Partition was one of them. And second thing, they decided all these princely states, which were just nothing but having a ceremonial status under British rule, will be given independence before British, as they were before British arrivals. And we know that before British arrivals, India were ruled by so many kings. They started winning right from Battle of Plassey and onwards. So inside India, it was a very peculiar and pathetic picture that one-third country will be ruled by small princely states. Because after rebellion or National War of Independence of 1857, Britishers decided not to lapse any princely state any further. Till then, whatever merged into British Empire was merged. Later on, they decided that rule will be of British, but king will have just ceremonial status and some wealth, his ancestral wealth. But while quitting India, they decided those kings will not be titular kings, they will be real rulers. And what happened that nobody would like to leave throne in such a way. So same thing happened. These kings started feeling that they became kings, they are ready to rule. Fortunately, there was one person whom we call Iron Man of India, that is Sardar Patel. He was there. He made it very categorically clear that people of India want independence, and it doesn't mean that transfer of power from Britishers to these aristocratic and totally useless kings. They said India will be independent and republic. It will not be ruled by some small feudal parties. And looking in reality, means looking at the military strength of India and that small princely state, wish of the people, out of that 600, all of them voluntarily merged into India. They said that we no more want this facility, we are ready to merge in India peacefully. Only 3 princely states created some trouble. First, as we know, Hyderabad, later on Junagadh, and last and very important in Jammu and Kashmir. I will sum up Junagadh and Hyderabad very shortly. Junagadh is located in Gujarat almost, you can say, which is surrounded by India on 3 directions. On 4th direction, there is the Arabian Sea. Pakistan is not party to that state, but anyway. Nawab was demanding he wanted to merge in Pakistan because he said he wanted to merge in Pakistan. There is, and Britishers has provided him that facility. But Jinnah's two nation theory says कि Hindu dominated part should go with India. So by that logic, Junagadh should be part of India because 90% individuals were Hindus. If you see geographically how they can merge in Pakistan when it is absolutely surrounded by India. It was practically impossible. By three sides Indian land and fourth side there is Arabian Sea. Nearest village of Pakistan was 400 miles away. But that king started to behave very adamantly and we have to take action. And before that he ran away to Pakistan. So that issue was solved in some seconds. All people also said we are ready for referendum, but there was no need. It was done unanimously. Then question of Hyderabad. Hyderabad decided to say that we will remain as an independent state inside India. And they started trouble also in sending people for dacoities. Then there were Razakars who want to do atrocity on Hindu community. And though we thought very liberally, but it was impossible to tolerate that nonsense. And in 48, exactly 1 year after our independence, police action was taken, army was sent. Within 5 days, Hyderabad was over. Nizam surrendered. And our part of Marathwada, Maharashtra, was previously part of that Nizam state. That Nizam state is now in 3 states. Hyderabad capital is in Andhra Pradesh, some part is in Karnataka which was Kannada speaking, and Marathwada is now with Maharashtra. There was also no dispute. Only disputed part is Jammu and Kashmir today. Out of those 600 princely states, only one state which is not only disputed here but unfortunately got a global dimension, that is Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir is very peculiar in a way. If you see the map, you will understand its strategic importance. It is an apex of India. On its west side you will find Pakistan. If you go further, at that time USSR was there, not Russia. You will find USSR, Afghanistan, Tibet, China, and in between that state of Jammu and Kashmir. So it was having very unique importance strategically at that time and till then. The population of Jammu and Kashmir, especially Kashmir Valley, was Muslim precisely. But King Hari Singh of Dogra community was Hindu. Picture is very ironical. Though King Hari Singh was Hindu, he was friend of Mahmud Ali Jinnah. And Muslim conference leader, nowadays we call it as a national conference, Sheikh Abdullah's party. Its leader, Sheikh Abdullah, was great friend of Jawaharlal Nehru. Nehru wanted Kashmir should run democratically and democratically it should become part of India. Jinnah wanted his Britishers had handed over this attorney to kings to decide fate of their princely state. Hari Singh should sign on their behalf and Jammu Kashmir should merge with Pakistan. And Hari Singh was having a great dream. He said, this climate is better than Switzerland and whatnot. I don't want to merge with any state. I want to keep independence. I want to make it tourist destination. I want to prove that Kashmir is just a heaven on this earth. And I will remain independent. It was no problem from India's side, but Jinnah was very, very ambitious on these lines. By hooks or crooks, he wanted merger. Then, when he one day he decided, Kashmir is not ready to merge with Pakistan. Legally, he couldn't do anything. So he decided to send armies. And it was done same thing which was done in Kargil. Even after deploying, sending armed forces, it was said that it is not nothing to do with Pakistan. In Kargil also we realized, they said they are Mujahideens, they are freedom fighters and it's a fight between them and Indian forces. But later on, when we killed them, we found whole north line infantry of Pakistan had died there. Their icons were displayed. frontline northern infantry. At that time, similar tactics were used, but name was not given of Pakistan. They said they are freedom fighters. When this battle started, as we know, the princely states was having just ceremonial army, just like Nawab of Hyderabad. They were having army to do parade, to salute kings, to do all ceremonial march, but they don't have any experience of logistic applications and warfare. When Pakistan attacked, in couple of days, Hari Singh realized his faith. Independence will be not only a dream, but his existence is also at stake. Then naturally he demanded aid from India. Mountbatten was there as a last Governor General. He said to Indian leadership, it is battle between Kashmir and Pakistan. India can't interfere. Kashmir has to merge in India, then you can do something. So those legalities has to be fulfilled. A plane was sent. Then Minister Mahajan as well as Hari Singh came down. They signed the Treaty of Accession. And you will be surprised to know the Treaty of Accession is same for all states. Our Kolhapur state, maybe any other neighboring state, Hyderabad state or Kashmir merged with same thing. That unconditionally we are merging in India. There is no prior condition, no promises. We are just merging with India. So it was signed, army was sent. After army was sent, hence they has to deal with Indian army. It was very difficult for Pakistan to hold on. They started going back. But we are aware, weather and geography of Kashmir is not friendly to human beings. There are very deep valleys, very high mountains. Roads are still not there, forget about in 47. So pace of battle was very low. It took more than 3-4 months, and even then 2/3 Kashmir was free, but 1/3 was still outside. Then Nehru thought, why to do bloodshed if we go to United Nations and do something in legal way and compel Pakistan to withdraw, then without bloodshed I can get this. And I will be proved as a great diplomat, not only in India, outside us. But it was proved as a great blunder. When he went to United Nations said two things. First, to do ceasefire, means stop fighting. Secondly, they said Pakistan should withdraw, India should withdraw, United Nations will go there, and then we will have a referendum. We will ask to do plebiscite. Let people of Jammu and Kashmir decide where to go. India accepted this unilaterally. But Pakistan denied. What was the reason? Now Pakistan demands same thing. After UN said it is outdated, but at that time, Pakistan refused referendum. What was the reason? Even in those days, it was decisively Muslim population. But why Pakistan don't want referendum in those days? Answer was very simple. When Pakistan came, they had shown great hospitality. They burned houses, killed people, looting, raping, all sorts of atrocities. They made havoc almost in the vicinity of Srinagar. And nobody, no citizen, will vote to Pakistan just because he is of his religion after getting such an experience. So Pakistan was aware that they will not get any vote from Jammu and Kashmir, so they started playing these tactics. Why United Nations are saying Pakistan should withdraw forces? Why not India first? UN was very clear, hence Pakistan has done aggression, they has to withdraw, then India will withdraw, then UN will be deployed, and we'll have a referendum, but Pakistan refused to do. And then that issue was kept pending. Though our armies were marching, but it was stopped. It was a political blunder in that Himalaya. Now we see map of Kashmir. Means whenever we see map of India, we see map of Kashmir at top. Are you aware how much Kashmir is really with us? Hardly 63% Kashmir is with us. Rest of the Kashmir is some part which lies with Pakistan, some part which captured by China in War of 62, and there is some part which Pakistan gifted to China, though it belongs to India. And that strategy is still working. In Jammu and Kashmir, there is a Ladakh section which is dominated by Buddhists, Jammu section which is decisively, not decisively, but by and large Hindu, and Kashmir Valley nowadays is just Muslims. But till almost 88, there was no separate movement, or terrorism was in much low. You can say not even low intensity warfare was going on. We fought battle in 65 with Pakistan. In 71, it was decisive victory. We all know that Pakistan just surrendered in 13 days. On 13th day, Lieutenant General Niazi surrendered before India in these words that we beg mercy from India. 93,000 Pakistani soldiers was in our jails almost for 7-8 months. What happened later on? That battle was not fought over Kashmir issue actually. But Simla Accord was done for Kashmir. You may say it was give and take, it was diplomatically. It is committing for peaceful negotiations and will not resort to arms race, will not create any internal disturbance. We are willing to release them. Those prisoners were released. Again, military took over. As far as Pakistan, we can say every nation on this planet, even smallest, has an army, has an armed force. But in case of Pakistan, army has captured that nation. In Pakistan, army has a nation. Nation doesn't have army. India has an army to defend India. US has an army to defend US or her interest. But in Pakistan, Pakistan had captured that nation for her own interest. There is a one nice book which was written inside Pakistan's military economy. I think that is banned in Pakistan but may be available here. In Pakistan, since beginning, it was military dictatorship, either directly or indirectly. Always they give same reason, because we are here from India, because we are smaller in size, to protect country we need strong army, and to have a strong army should have say in every sector. On case of Jammu and Kashmir, especially after 71's defeat, General Zia and his country decided, in warfare they can't defeat India, that is crystal clear. How they will defeat? And even if they say about nuclear race, today I can tell you, Pakistan is having nuclear bomb, that is true. But what India is having? India is having hydrogen bomb, which can at least 100 times stronger than any nuclear bomb. How many countries of the world have hydrogen bomb? India is the only 6th country after that nuclear club. And we may think, unfortunately also, if Pakistan drops atom bomb over Indian city, that city will vanish. But if India drops hydrogen bomb over Pakistan, will Pakistan remain? So I think it will be foolish thing to say that Pakistan will ever go for that arm race, unconventional arm race. So they decided to do one thing. They started to do approximate, that is low intensity work. And that is very difficult to find. Let me give you a simple example regarding our health. If we have some bone fracture, you can apply plaster and you will be alright. But there is small infection of such a small germs and virus which can't be even detected under microscope. You can't do anything because you can't locate where virus is. You don't know how to fight with it. Just because it is paining in hand, you can't cut out it. You can't cut out limbs of human body. Similarly, in low intensity warfare, in terrorism, it is very difficult. Suppose in train and bus, people are traveling, we don't know who terrorist blast, some people died, and everybody is clueless and panic. So whenever a person is of having less power, guerrilla war, or low intensity warfare, or terrorism, is usually adopted, which is now adopted by Pakistan. But question is, why after 80s only they are becoming so successful? And what are solutions to this? We will say, in 88, General Zia started Operation Tumpak, which was having a systematic guidelines how to do approximate war with India and start separatism. Before that, Pakistan supported Khalistan movement, as we know. The terrorism was shut down successfully, and now Punjab is very peaceful. But as far as Kashmir is concerned, Kashmir is unfortunately having global dimension, and every country is having different state. As far as Pakistan is concerned, Pakistan occupied Kashmir as per Pakistan's constitution is called as Azad Kashmir, and they are aspiring to capture whole Kashmir, and then they want to rule that Kashmir as per their wish. And they also say that hence Kashmir is Muslim populated state. Kashmir के बिना पाकिस्तान अधूरा है. If this rhetoric goes, Indian में से कि पाकिस्तान के बिना हिंदुस्तान अधूरा है. So that logic won't work. But in Kashmir, China is having only 17% territory, and China don't want to expand much. China need it purely for logistic applications. They want this to construct roads and join from Tibet to Sikkim and towards Bhutan also. For these links, they need some territory of Kashmir, and they don't want to expand it. Their claim is on other side, but in Kashmir, China don't have further claims. As far as India says as per this accession in 47, whole state of Jammu and Kashmir is integral part of India. Not only that, in 1993, Indian Parliament had passed a unanimous resolution that one day we will capture whole Jammu and Kashmir state. But if we today look very realistically, what we think, what are the feasibilities? Even in Kargil conflict, when there was a great public pressure on government to attack on Pakistan, it was even militarily suitable, they decided not to do so. In case of Pakistan, what happened? India freed two-thirds part of Kargil, but one-third Pakistan withdrew because America ordered. That much America's influence is still there on Pakistan. As far as China is concerned, we all know that China is emerging as a great power, militarily, economically. China looks to all these things very, very cunningly and very fully also. After our debacle in 62, China had understood India's neighbors. And today if we see, do you remember where Parvez Musharraf was in Kargil War? At the time of Kargil War, he was in China. So we can understand from where Pakistan is also operating. China has given asylum to Bangladesh. Burma's regime is almost puppet of China. China these days is saying that Indian Ocean is not India's ocean. In their maps, they are showing Arunachal Pradesh is a part of China. So China is doing all its expansion. China wants to dominate this Asian region, and just to create problem for India, they want to support Pakistan. But in these days, after 9/11 attack, you may say that somehow terrorism has made worry even to superpowers. And in Sikkim, China is facing same problem which we are facing in Kashmir. Russia is facing problem in Chechnya. So now there is concern that if we support somebody for terrorism, later on we may suffer what we can say recoil of it. What Pakistan has done in Lal Masjid, why there is so much bloodshed in northwest frontier? What about tribal areas towards Afghanistan? So these questions will compel Pakistan to think twice over their policy. United States is also very not supportive as she was years back. In Jammu and Kashmir, let me tell you, you may be aware, there is Article 370. What that article is, which ensures a special status to the Jammu and Kashmir, not like any other state. We all know India is having federal structure, not unitary. Means we are having state government as well as we are having central government. And citizenship is single. You could be Maharashtrian, you could be Karnataki, you could be Madrasi, you could be anybody, but citizen you are Indian. You could be resident of any particular city, you could be domicile of any state, but citizen of India only, but Kashmir is exceptional. In Kashmir, there is a dual citizenship. There is dual citizenship, means every Kashmiri is Indian, but not vice versa. Kashmir is also having national flag. Kashmir is also having their separate constitution. Not only that, previously, there was no chief ministers and governor in Kashmir. There was a Sadr-e Riyasat and Wazir-e-Azam, which in Urdu suggests the post of Prime Minister and President. Previously it was done as per appeasement. Later on it was proved that it is showing some divisive things, separating things. And when Sheikh Abdullah started dreaming to become ruler of Kashmir, central government has to act early. He was sent behind bars. This provision of Sadr-e Riyasat and Wazir-e-Azam was removed. Our Supreme Court made jurisdiction expanded in Jammu and Kashmir. Some reforms was made. But let me compare this with China and Tibet. You all must be aware that in 55, China took complete control of Tibet. Before that, Tibet was almost independent country, which was having residency in India. It was British system to protect India from future Chinese aggression. Later on, Nehru wanted a coordinal relations, peaceful, harmonious relations with China. As a goodwill gesture, he decided not to fight over Tibet. Then China took Tibet. There was a famous speech in Lok Sabha given by Ram Manohar Lohia, who was socialist, who says that because of this, now India and China border is emerged, not Indo-Tibet, and in future we may have to regret over it. And that happened after 7 years. But if you go to Tibet, you will not find Tibetan population, you will find Chinese population more than Tibetan. Is it possible in Jammu and Kashmir? In Jammu and Kashmir, you and me or even President of India can't purchase a single square foot land. We can take their shelter as a tenant only. We can't purchase land. We can't purchase any immovable property. Is it a way to integrate with India? And there are some people in India, unknowingly they support this type of sub-nationalism. And that leads to separatism. And that creates a threat for national security. In Jammu and Kashmir, nowhere in the accession it is mentioned that such a provision is needed. Jawaharlal Nehru unanimously took this decision. He convinced the member of parliament that it's a temporary phrase, but whatever he promised as a temporary proved to be long-lasting and maybe never-ending promise for India. He says it is only for transitional period, but 370 became almost till that article is in existence. Even if anybody decides, anybody suppose in Mumbai, what is population of Mumbai these days? More than population of whole Australia. It has crossed more than 1 crore 50 lakhs. It is flooding with people. And chaos of public utility is made. Why? Because all Indians are allowed to enter Mumbai. There is no such a thing like permit. And why people come? It's a city of opportunity. And they are Indian, they have every right to come. Why it is not applicable to Jammu and Kashmir? There Today, so many people, especially of defense forces, who served in Kashmir, want to settle there, but government is not permitting. So any Kashmiri can go anywhere, Indian can't go to Kashmir, and there was a large agitation. You must be aware that a colleague of Nehru, who later on formed Janasangha, he was a minister also, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee and Deen Dayal Upadhyay had said this, that stop this subnationalism. There was a provision, if you want to go to Kashmir, you have to take permit, just like you are entering some foreign country. So Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, just to do agitation, not for any special activity, entered Kashmir without permit. He landed up in jail and he never came back. That forced government and that caused the countrywide agitations. After that, Indian government acted and stopped that provision to take permit and go to Kashmir. But because of these appeasement, still merger of Jammu and Kashmir seems to be not completed. In Jammu and Kashmir, do you know what facilities they are getting? They are getting electricity at very cheaper rates. They are also getting dual citizenship. They are having tax concessions. There are three lists for governance in India: means union list, concurrent list, and state list. So, in any state, suppose in Maharashtra, state legislature passes something on concurrent list, and union government passes some law which is against it. Right? Whatever union government passes will prevail, but in state of Jammu and Kashmir it is vice versa. This sort of identity given to them as if they are some foreigners, it's a colony of someone, which is causing a trauma to India. Today, our one-third army, more than 4 lakh armed forces are deployed in Jammu and Kashmir. In glaciers like Siachen, we are spending crores of rupees every day. If demography of Kashmir has to be changed, you can see this change everywhere. That causes national integration. Though this is Maharashtra, don't we find non-Marathi people, we find very easily. Do we suffer from it? Certainly no. In industrial hubs like Gurgaon, you may say in Uttar Pradesh, Noida, which is adjacent to Delhi, people across the country come and do some entrepreneurship. Why it is not allowed in Jammu and Kashmir? Then who is responsible? The persons like Sheikh Abdullah, Farooq Abdullah, they just want their interest should be served, but they are not bigger than India. And all the parties has to think along these lines while deciding their manifesto. If you want Jammu and Kashmir not only should remain but should be treated as a part of India, you have to take some firm decisions. Apart from that, you must be remembering Operation Blue Star, which was launched in Punjab. Why it was launched? Some Sikh terrorists hiding in Golden Temple decided to Punjab independent state. And that's why holiest shrine of Sikh community was stormed by army. Is it done in Kashmir adequately? You must be remembering Hazrat Bal incident. Do you remember? In Hazrat Bal, there is a shrine in Kashmir Valley where one hair is kept in bottle. Just it looks like thermometer. What is significance of their hair? Muslims think that hair is of Muhammad Paigambar, so it is called Hazrat Bal. And to see that, crowd comes across the nation, you may say. Terrorists captured that shrine in 94, took hostages, but what government did? Government provided them food, shelter, asylum, and allowed them to move away with whatever they want. They haven't done anything. For 2 months, that shrine was with terrorists. If any shrine is not polluted or molested because terrorists are inside, then how it is molested if patriotic army comes inside? answer that? Then there is a question of faith also. We see that even these days persons like Karunanidhi say, what you have proof that Ram was born there, here. But can anybody given proof that here belongs to Hazrat Paigambar? Do you have any proof, any DNA testing, any whatsoever? But you can adjust with their faith. Then why not with majority community? And question of faith should not be mixed with national interest. In case, let me tell you, whenever Pakistan says, or Musharraf said same thing in Agra Summit, I still remember his press conference. He was saying, if India-Pakistan dispute has to be resolved, Kashmir dispute has to be resolved. And Kashmir dispute should be resolved with the wishes of people of Jammu and Kashmir. But let me tell you, is Kashmir is the reason between India and Pakistan? Is the real reason? I think Pakistan is just based on hatred of Hindus. Even if Kashmir is given to Pakistan, they will demand Punjab, they will demand Gujarat. They just want something to maintain and nurture psyche against Hindus, so that that nation should remain in existence. Otherwise, how Kashmir, against the wish of those people, can become part of Pakistan? India has to do a very firm stage. I think, even if we think in warfare, I think that is better than facing war every day. And facing this terror that anybody goes out, especially in metros, nobody is sure that residents will come alive, or some limbs will explode because of bomb. This low intensity warfare is really taking toll of India and even Pakistan also, to be frank. India is large and competent enough to deal with terrorism, but Pakistan can't deal with terrorism. They must realize how easily Bangladesh they lose. Balochistan is on merger of losing. So, to taking note of this, I think the proper solution to the Jammu and Kashmir is to scrap Article 370 and make it a state just like any other state in India. We should take all legal measures to ensure recaptivity from Pakistan, and if not so, then we should be resort to arms and complete our map as it is. And that's it. And your questions are welcome. Thank you.